The RPG aspect of the game is the worst I've seen in a while. Oh, we do got to talk about this. In today's video, I'm going to go over 1-star Hogwarts Legacy reviews. I have done this for a few games in the past, and I found that I really enjoy reading and discussing other perspectives and really trying to figure out if they're in good faith and grounded in truth and some reality, or if someone's just really emotional about something and kind of spewing out garbage. Now, I do want to let you guys know that I have beaten this game, and overall, I did greatly enjoy my experience. I'll likely drop an in-depth review sometime in the near future. Without further ado, let's jump right in. So I want to preface by showing you guys the overall reviews for the game, and we'll start over here on Steam. As you guys can see, it has a very positive rating, with 93% of the 97,075 user reviews for this game being positive. Now, Steam doesn't have a star rating system, so it's hard to find the bottom of the bottom reviews because it's just thumbs up or thumbs down. So we're also going to head over to Google Reviews, which does use a star system. As you can see, the game over on Google has a 4.6 average star rating, which is really good out of 1,315 ratings. Then we have the summary. IGN gave a 9 out of 10, The Wired gave a 1 out of 10, and then Metacritic gave an 84%. Now, clearly, the Wired article brought in social and political issues into their review, which is fine. You can review a game any way that you want, but if you're looking for like an actual review on a game, you're probably going to throw those reviews out in the garbage. Now, I should also say, though, there's a lot of people that gave this game a 10 out of 10 in spite of the people that gave it a 1 out of 10. And they also brought in their political, emotional, social views into their own reviews. And those are just as useless to someone that's looking for a good review on the actual game itself. Now, the whole ethical consumption debate can be very complex. I don't really feel like getting into it. The only thing I will say is I think you should do what you think is right. There are people in my community that I know personally that are not playing this game, that are not watching my videos right now and not watching my Hogwarts Legacy streams, but the vast majority of them are also not harassing people. And I'll tell you what, I am much more inclined and likely to hear out their opinion on different issues in the future. I'm interested in their perspective because they seem like they're reasonable, intelligent, respectful people that understand how humans work. Harassing people achieves the exact opposite. 1, you're radicalizing people away from the thing you're supposedly standing for. 2, what makes you a representative of the community that you're supposedly standing for? Probably nothing. And 3, reasonable people are not going to listen to your opinion, and they're also not going to let it radicalize themselves to the opposite of your opinion, but your opinion is nothing to them. You're not really achieving anything. Okay, so the first 1-star review says, I wish I could return it. Alohomora is a magic spell. Why, after casting it, do I have to manually turn the lock mechanisms to then unlock it? That's not magic. I totally understand where this player's coming from. The way that I justified this mechanic was that when you cast Alohomora, you're no longer the actual player itself. You're assuming the role of the magic. So you go into the actual lock and you control the magic to unlock the lock for the player. That's the way that I looked at it. Now, with that said, it does get really repetitive and really redundant. There's no progression behind it, which is a bummer. I think what they could have done is when you get lockpicking level 2, all of the lockpicking level 1 locks will just unlock when you cast Alohomora. And when you reach level 3, lockpicking level 1, and I keep saying lockpicking, Alohomora level 1 and 2 will just instantly unlock for you. Something like that I think would have kind of satisfied the need for there to be some mechanic, because if you could just cast it and doors open, at that point you might as well just leave every door unlocked. But at the same time, they didn't really do it that great, and it's pretty boring, and the mechanic isn't really even that fun. This game is not a game of 2023. This is a game for the PlayStation 2. Don't know where people come from when they say things like this. I'll show you guys a video of a PlayStation 2 game, and here is a video of Hogwarts Legacy. Look nothing alike. I think this is just a statement that this person made. They're probably angry with the game for whatever reasons we're going to get into, and they just make ridiculous statements like this. The only good thing about this is maybe the first hour of looking at every special place from the movies. Now, this is, of course, something that has made a lot of fans really, really happy, is all of the attention to detail with the iconic locations from the films and the books alike. I would disagree and say that it extended probably into the 20 or 30 hour region for myself. That novelty of exploring Hogwarts and the world lasted more than halfway through the game for myself, and I played for probably like 70 hours on my first run. So I just disagree. I think it is a lot more powerful than what this person is implying here, but that's their opinion. So if they only felt it was fun for an hour, then it is what it is. It's bland visually. The NPCs are one-dimensional. You can't interact with them, which makes this game feel so fake and lifeless. And I totally understand where this player is coming from. Not being able to interact with more NPCs was a big bummer. It was one of my bigger complaints as I was playing the game. It seems like if an NPC doesn't have a side quest for you, or it's not part of the actual quest that you're currently on, you can't do really anything with them, and nor does really like anything affect them environmentally really that much, besides a small little animation if you hit them with a spell. I hope for the next game, if they do another game, that they would improve upon something like that. At the very least, let us talk to like all of the important NPCs when we're not on their quest. Let us strike up a conversation with Professor Ronan, even if he's not the current quest that we're on. Let us talk to the house ghosts about their history. They could have done much better in this department. The plot and reasons for events are weak. Without getting too spoilery, even though we're going over reviews, so this is kind of a spoiler overall. I actually liked the plot. I just thought it was underwhelming, the second half of it. The whole idea of the pensives, I think, was really great and really creative, and it was something that fans could latch on to that was familiar to them. And also building upon ancient magic, I thought was a great idea, because ancient magic is something that is so important to the Harry Potter franchise, yet not expanded upon basically at all. The whole reason for Harry Potter is ancient magic saved Harry from Voldemort's Avada Kedavra killing curse. And having a game that expands upon that, I thought was a great idea for a story. Definitely a little underwhelming in the main quest department in the second half, if you ask me. But I actually liked the story. Thought it was pretty good. Some of the side quests, such as Sebastian Salo's, were better than the main story in my opinion, which presents a little bit of a problem. Sebastian Salo's quest could have been the main story, and I would have been perfectly fine with it. You are a fifth year, but completing first year classes. There was much better ways to accomplish this story arc. I do gotta say, they didn't really expand upon the character's background at all, which I thought would have been a definite thing that we would have gotten at least at some point in the game, trying to figure out why we're coming to Hogwarts as a fifth year student. I don't know, maybe it was in the game and I just missed it. I don't think I did though. So leaving out the character background was a big bummer in my opinion. And yes, they could have accomplished the story arc better because of that. Several times while fighting, black squares with white grid lines showed up instead of me seeing items being collected. Can't comment on that. Didn't happen to me. It seems like a graphical error or issue. Fighting is boring. In a world of magic, I feel like this shouldn't be a thing. You just shoot colored magic at them and it doesn't do enough. Only on weak enemies will it actually lift or move them. It should work on every single one. It's magic. I completely disagree with this because there's different types of creatures that have different resistances to different types of magic. And also in the wizarding world, there's charms and counter charms and defensive measures that one can take to resist certain types of magic. Not to mention that a witch or wizard has to become better at magic and grow in power to be able to cast more powerful spells. So I think this statement just is made with a lack of knowledge on how wizarding world magic works. And also from a balancing perspective, I think it makes sense that you can't just levitate a troll and keep him up in the air the entire time, because there wouldn't be much balance in that. There wouldn't be much challenge left in the game if you could do that. So I totally understand why they designed the combat the way that they did, and it also makes sense from a wizarding world lore magical knowledge perspective. Saying that the fighting is boring, if this player really just thought it was boring, there's nothing you can really say that means that they're wrong, because this is an experience, and if they're bored while they were in combat, that's how they were feeling. But I gotta say, the combat was one of the highlights of the game for myself, and I was really worried about the combat being good before the game came out. I was very, very surprised. I had so much fun, and even though I thought the game should be much more challenging on hard mode, I'm really kind of depressed that there's not like a hardcore mode or something like that. Even when I would just go destroy the easy mobs, like I was just having so much fun slinging these spells around and trying different combos, the animations, the sounds, the particle effects. It was just a lot of fun, and that's coming from someone who typically doesn't like games when they get a little bit on the easier side. I get bored really fast. Didn't feel that way with Hogwarts Legacy's combat. The small inventory, even though there are massive amounts of things to collect. This is driving me crazy. I've just given up opening large chests. They should have made that unfillable. In a magic world where a huge house can be in a small tent, how the hell do I run out of inventory space? Totally agree. It doesn't really make sense in this particular case, and it was kind of annoying with the inventory. If you are a new player, make sure you complete your Merlin trials early on in the game, and that will help out a lot in this category. But yeah, I kind of understand. I actually advocate for inventory management systems in games. I like to have to manage that a little bit and not be able to just pick up anything, because that takes out the immersion for myself. Don't really think they did it that well in this game, and it doesn't really make that much sense. And the itemization in this game was definitely not one of the strong points. The loot got really boring, and I really stopped caring about things that I was getting. At the very least, have a chest in my room so I can dump everything in. That way I never have to see that damn message. Yeah, that would have been great. I wonder why they didn't include that. That would have actually given us a reason to return to our common rooms a little bit, which I think were very, very underused and didn't have that much meaning in the overall game, which was a bit of a bummer. The expression on the character faces is indicative of the PlayStation 2 games. That was a weak effort at a game not fully finished. This is where they're expanding a little bit on that PlayStation 2 statement earlier. And even though I think it's not fair to say that this game looks like a PS2 game, because there's so many areas where it clearly does not, I understand the animations are not really the best in terms of the facial expressions when talking to an NPC. Didn't really bother me that much. Stuff like that isn't as important to me as the actual gameplay, which I really liked in this game. But it was probably a budgeting issue, and they could have done better in that department for sure. Oh yeah, flying. Why in the hell is left and right on one joystick and up and down on another? This seems to be a common complaint, and I totally understand. I got used to the flying really fast, and I really enjoyed it. It was one of the highlights, just flying around the world on your broom or on a hippogriff or a thestral. With that said, you couldn't really look like up and down and like really sightsee while you were flying around, which is one of the strengths of this game, is being able to see the castle and all these iconic locations. When you're flying around the school, you can't even look down at what's below you. So yeah, they could have done better in the flight control department for sure. This is an expensive sightseeing tour where you get to play a wizard with cheap effects. Disagree. The worst effort on scenery. Disagree. Thought the scenery was beautiful. Statue NPCs, understand where they're coming from. And boring magic. I disagree. The magic was a ton of fun in this game, in my opinion. Finally, moving on to the next 1-star review, but we're going to just talk about this one briefly because it talks about performance. And if the game didn't run well for you on whatever you're playing it on, and you were told that it was going to because you meet the minimum requirements or whatever, of course you're going to be angry and not be happy with what you just purchased. For myself, the game ran really well out in the open world. When I was in the castle itself, after I turned ray tracing off, the FPS drops kind of went away. It wasn't really that bad, but whenever I opened up a door in the castle, there would be light rendering issues that could take you out of the immersion. Didn't really affect me that much because I thought the gameplay was really good and I loved being in the world, so I was able to overlook that, but somebody else might not be able to as easily, so I understand. From a bug standpoint, this game really didn't have that many bugs. I think I encountered like 3 or 4 little situations where something was bugging out, where an enemy was inside a rock or a goblin was spinning around. But out of 70 hours of gameplay, only having like 3 or 4 that I can think of, and none of them actually being game breaking, I think is a win for the release of this game. Moving on to the next 1-star review, which gave the game a 1-star because of naming restrictions. Restrictions on naming your character in a single player game that you own. How on earth is Schmeike classed as a restricted word? Can anyone tell me where the issue is? And no, I can't tell you where the issue is with that name. And now that I think of it, I had trouble naming a few creatures in my vivarium. I wanted to name one of them TARDIS after one of my subscribers. I can understand where TARDIS connects to another word, but like, come on. TARDIS is also a time machine. I don't know. That seems really restrictive. And then I tried Turtis as like a funny variant of his name, and that was also restricted. And I'm just thinking like, what's going on here? Like, not only is this a single player offline game, even though people can stream it to people, those words, that, I don't know, that's being taken way too far. Now with that said, to completely just throw the game out because you weren't able to name your character Schmeike, I don't know, just doesn't seem like a great way to go through the world, because there's always going to be something that you don't like with something, and you threw away the entire experience just because of naming your character and character creation. It's just not the way that I live my life, but hey, I guess that name means a lot. So on to the next one. I came here looking to read through positive reviews to try and figure out what I'm missing here, and the only conclusion I can draw is that people love it simply because it's Harry Potter, and they give it 5 stars just because of that. I can understand where this perspective is coming from, but I think they're taking it too much to an extreme. I think the majority of people don't love it simply because it's Harry Potter. They love it because it's Harry Potter, and Avalanche Software did so many things right in the game to really pay homage to the Harry Potter franchise. There has been Harry Potter games in the past that didn't do that good, so I think it's disingenuous to say that it's all, look at the Deathly Hallows right here. I'd like to find user reviews and not corporation reviews, but 2 out of 10 from IGN, 5 out of 10 GameStop, 38% Metacritic for Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. I think this is, part 1, the video game, so there's proof alone that Harry Potter, the name, doesn't make it good. So I think it's disingenuous to say it's simply because it's Harry Potter. I think the devs capitalized on the Harry Potter name, but they had to do things right in order to really capitalize on it. If you were to take away the Harry Potter theming from this game, what you'd be left with is a generic, mediocre, seen it all before RPG that you feel like you could have played 20 years ago, albeit with better graphics and a bigger budget. Now, this statement I can understand more than the previous statement because it's not as extreme or simplistic, I guess you could say, because I do acknowledge that it being Harry Potter and being in the wizarding world can add points to the scale. But the key word is can add points. The developer still has to do things right to satisfy those fans. You guys have seen when companies, movies, and gaming companies ruin a beloved franchise and they don't do things right, people get really pissed off and they hate the game. Didn't happen in this case. So we can't disregard the things that Avalanche Software did right to appeal to the Harry Potter fans. Can't be disregarded. Now, with that said, I do think they were targeting Harry Potter fans, of course. So some games just aren't made for everyone, and this game is more so made for Harry Potter fans. And non-Harry Potter fans, I can see the opinions being quite divisive. Some people seem to love it and they're getting into Harry Potter now. Other people have this guy's opinion where it's mediocre, and other people just don't like it at all. So if you have the opinion that it's just a mediocre RPG, even though I think I would actually call it an action adventure with RPG elements, if you have that opinion, I think that's perfectly valid, but I don't think it's right to just say this game is good simply because it's Harry Potter. You're disregarding so many other reasons why people love this game. All right, 2 more 1-star reviews and we'll call it a day. They should have released it when it was ready, not prioritizing one group of people and making others wait an additional 2 months. Waited years with this day in my calendar just for them to have yet another delay and target certain groups. They really have bad time management if they still couldn't manage to be on time. And then this reviewer talks about getting certain pre-order benefits on one console and not the other. You know what? I totally understand this. If I was an old gen console player, I would not be happy that, a lot of the world gets to experience this all together at the same time and I have to wait 2 more months when the hype is kind of down. There's spoilers everywhere. I don't know. I can understand frustration here, especially considering the circumstances of this planet over the past couple of years with price inflation, and the availability of current gen consoles has been pretty tough. So I would have preferred that they did all of us at the same time. It's not like we're talking about like a PlayStation 1 or a PlayStation 2 release. A lot of people are still playing old gen, and for reasons that make a lot of sense. In terms of exclusives for PlayStation players, never been a fan of any of that stuff, but fortunately it's the nature of the business. I don't think it's going anywhere. Not even really worthy of talking about at this point. In the last 1-star review, the longer I played this game, the more it went from a 10 out of 10 to a 1 out of 10. I see a lot of 1-star reviewers do this. Like, they'll say things are mediocre or they loved certain aspects but they hated other aspects, yet they give it a 1 star. That just doesn't seem right to me. Like, wouldn't you give it at least a 2-star, maybe a 3-star if you loved things but you hated other things? I don't know. I guess people's standards for reviewing things are quite different from one another. Gameplay is extremely repetitive. The peak of the game is the first 5 hours when you're learning, and after that it's rinse repeat with spells, dialogue, and enemies. I can understand this. There's definitely some repetitive things in this game. For myself personally, I didn't really feel the weight of that repetition until the second half of the game, so we're talking 30 to 40 hours into the game. I played pretty slow and took my time with things. And I will say that I actually enjoyed the way that they drip fed me certain gameplay aspects. It took me like over 10 to 12 hours to get my broom in the game. So the first 10 hours of the game were very different than when I got my broom. That changed things up quite a lot. And then it took me a while to get my flying mount. And along the way, I was not doing the main story quests that fast, so it took me a while to learn different spells. So for myself and the way I played the game and the way I enjoyed it, I got content fed to me in a pacing that kept things fresh, and I didn't really start feeling the weight of repetition until the second half, and that's like 30-40 hours into it. At that point, I already feel like I got my money's worth to some extent, because I don't play games long that I don't enjoy. Now, with that said, Merlin Trials, Alohomora stuff, the gear, the enemy variety, there are a lot of repetitious type things in this game, but the core of the game and the progression of the core mechanics And the way I played it, I didn't feel like the overall game was just a repetitive mess. Even if some of the side things started getting pretty boring, like Merlin Trials only having like 4 or 5 variants when there's like 50 or 60 Merlin Trials in the game or something like that. The RPG aspect of the game is the worst I've seen in a while. Oh, we do got to talk about this. If you're someone that only plays in-depth RPGs, and we're going off the definition of an RPG, the more old school definition, because the term RPG has absolutely evolved and grown to incorporate more games over the years, which I think is fine. But if you're one of the older school RPG lovers, CRPG lovers in particular, and you don't really like other types of games, you don't like action adventures and games like that, yeah, this is probably not the game for you. After playing for 70 plus hours, and as someone who's kind of understanding of the term RPG kind of changing over the years, I'm not an elitist about it, I would still consider this game an action adventure with RPG elements. If they just even had something such as choice consequence actually be a thing in the game, like branching paths that you could take, I think that would have satisfied so many RPG lovers, even if they didn't touch anything else in the game. Even if they didn't give us more build variety, more in-depth systems and mechanics, just having branching narratives would have satisfied a lot of RPG lovers, because a lot of us understand that this game is a streamlined mainstream game, and of course it's not going to get too crazy in-depth with mechanics. Choice and consequence doesn't have to be like a hardcore thing for a game. They could have expanded on that, actually made it a thing in this game, and I think a lot of people would have been much more satisfied. Now, with that said, I think it's pretty damn good for an action adventure, but they kind of advertised it to be like, you know, this be your own wizard type thing, and they pushed the dark magic a little bit. Didn't really turn out to be what we expected in that department. No desire to search anything, because all you'll find is gear. That's it. You'll spend 10 minutes doing a puzzle to get a chest that gives you new gear that will be replaced by better gear in the next common chest you find, because that's all you loot in this game is gear. Well, it's not all you loot. There are collectibles, potions, and money, but I totally understand this. And yeah, the itemization in this game is really poor. It's one of the biggest negatives, in my opinion. It really, like, I would just get new gear and not even look at it. Like, it got to a point where it was just so silly. And if they actually had good itemization, it would have meant so much more going into those caves at the edge of the map. But they failed in that department, if you ask me. Nothing else. My most hated aspect of this game is the story. Such a disappointment being a Hogwarts game to have the most bland, non-interesting story I've seen in a game. Looks like they wrote it up on toilet paper. Characters are boring and lifeless. Story goes nowhere and has unnecessary quests that don't advance the story. I mean, I can be okay with this opinion. I generally liked the story. I'm probably like 50-50 on the main story, with some of the side quests being really fun and really helping you explore the world, which was nice. Some of the characters were boring. Some were really damn interesting, like Sebastian and Ominous. So I guess I just disagree, but I can respect this opinion if they thought it was boring. This game doesn't let you feel unique. You become what the game wanted you to be. Your choices don't matter. I mean, yeah, generally speaking, this person is 99% correct, because I did discover a few things where your choice matters, but overall, your choice doesn't matter. You can be rude, you can cast whatever spell you want, it's not going to do nothing. My final review, if I played the game for only 5 hours, is a 10 out of 10, but beating the game and putting 30 plus hours into it, I rated a 1 out of 10. Would not recommend this game to anyone at full price, maybe half price, maybe. Okay. Not really sure I understand how it can become a 1 out of 10 when you're saying you would maybe recommend it at half price, because it means there's something there. And a 1 out of 10 is the absolute bottom pit of worthlessness. So I don't really agree with the rating after reading their review, even though I'm sure they would rate it pretty low, but whatever. So hopefully I can get my full review out, because like I mentioned in the beginning, I greatly enjoyed this game, but I'm very aware of things that I didn't enjoy about it also. If you made it to the end of the video, let me know below in the comments. This is a 20-something minute video, so thank you so much. Much more RPG content to come, and of course, let me know your opinions on everything below in the comments. Of course, you're already going to do that anyways, so catch you on the next one.